Does the Government of Canada practice legal and economic discrimination against its First Nations people? Applying the United Nations Human Development Index, which examines per capita income, education levels, and life expectancy to compare the world's countries, First Nations communities would rank 68th among 174 nations. Canada has dropped from 1st to 8th place due in part to the housing and health conditions in First Nations communities. We do not have to travel to faraway countries to witness poverty and devastation. Unlike the poor living conditions in other countries, in remote northern communities, the climate renders their condition potentially fatal.
I represent communities along the Ontario shores of James Bay up to Hudson Bay. When I was first elected in 2004 and began flying into these communities because there are no roads, I was absolutely shocked at the levels of poverty in all of the communities. The intense overcrowding, the failure of most basic municipal structures like sewage and water, the fact that two of my communities didn't really have schools. The kids in Attawapiskat were going to school on a contaminated playground. It wasn't even a playground. I mean, they don't have swings there. It was something that I think unless you actually could fly in there and see it, you would never believe that you were seeing this in Canada.
In January of 2010, Segee's Productions traveled to Attawapiskat, a remote First Nations community in Northern Ontario, to learn about their quality of life. We traveled back to the community in April of 2010 to document the reality that this community is living. Although the community of Attawapiskat is located right next to one of the richest diamond mines in North America, the De Beers Canada Victor mine, they are currently experiencing a severe housing, education, and infrastructure crisis. The community's struggle to overcome these challenges are unending.
If you believe that it's acceptable with any rationalization to say no to a child, or hold on, you get less because of your race in Canadian society, then you're going to see nothing but barriers to solving one of the biggest human rights violations in our history. But if you believe that there is no rationalization for children being told no from government, for the equal access and benefit for services, you're going to see nothing but opportunity to solve this. There is no reason why First Nations children in 2011 should get less. We can't afford inequality. We've decided that as a country, and yet it continues to be perpetrated against First Nations children. So if a government leader says to me, I can't afford equality in child welfare, we'll have to incrementally put it in place, then he or she, as a politician, has accepted racial discrimination as a legitimate form to fund things like the G8, to fund things like the $100 million they blew on economic action signs. They have accepted racial discrimination for children as being a legitimate way to save money.
Systematic discrimination, systematic segregation, economic discrimination.
You know, it's been over 105 years since that treaty was signed, and there's no improvement. It's getting worse, really. So.
Unacceptable housing standards, education standards, and infrastructure standards for any Canadian in the 21st century. Deliberate neglect or unwitting ignorance.